Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to our NLIS and eID recap for livestock agents and support staff. I'm Jodie Rizet-O'Brien and I'm one of the eID team. So our speakers today are Tara Vanderlua, who's the NLIS officer with PIRSA, and Denise Rendell, who's the senior NLIS officer with the Department of Primary Industries. At this time, I'll hand over to Tara. Thanks, Tara.
Thanks, Jodie, and good morning to everyone listening. Today's webinar is a recap on much of the information that we've been through before. There's nothing really alarmingly new to give you today, just a reminder of both your and your clients' responsibilities in the new eID sheep and goat system, as well as a few little extra bits of information that we might feel that are helpful. In general, the transition to sheep and goat eID is rolling along well. There's obviously been a few little teething issues here and there as the industry adjusts to the new way in which we hope to trace sheep and goats through the supply chain, which is to be expected. But in general, the transition has been pretty smooth. So we're all familiar now with the South Australia's eID implementation timeline, which you can see here. At this point, we've implemented all but one key tagging and scanning commencement date milestones. So at this point in time, we have all parties along the supply chain scanning and recording all eID movements. That's no matter where or why the animals are moving. So that's including P2P movements, sale yard movements, moving to processors, on-farm auctions, and shows and events, etc., etc. From January of last year, as you knew, all sheep and farm goats born on or after that date have needed to be eID tagged before leaving the property of birth. So 2026 brings us to the second year of having the entire year's drop eID tagged. The final milestone is coming up in 1 Jan 2027, January next year, where all sheep and farm goats moving anywhere must be identified with an NLIS accredited eID tag before leaving the property. That's regardless of age or destination. And I'll talk a little bit more about this, and the double tagging issue becomes more relevant in a later slide. So firstly, eID tagging. So at risk of repeating myself again, after 1 Jan of next year, all sheep and farmed goats need an accredited eID tag before moving off the property. It doesn't matter how old the animals are, what year they were born, or where they're moving. So that including moving older sheep direct to slaughter, everything needs an eID tag when moving off the property. Some reminders about NLIS eID tags. eID tags must be NLIS accredited, and all accredited tags have that NLIS logo printed on the outside of the tag so that they're easily identifiable. All NLIS accredited tags have gone through this strict 3-year accreditation process, which tests retention and readability to make sure they're suitable for the Australian conditions. However, correct application, we know, which includes placement, hygiene, and using the correct applicator, is critical for tag retention. So our advice continues to be for producers to follow manufacturers' recommendations. If producers or your clients are having retention issues, these can be directed to ISC, Integrity Systems Company, or the tag manufacturer or rural reseller. Just a reminder that only NLIS accredited tags are actually registered to the NLIS database and are traceable through the NLIS system. So the non-accredited eID tags, which have been in the system in the past, used in the past for on-farm management purposes, they're not NLIS accredited and they're not registered to their database, so they have no traceability benefit. A reminder that eID tags are also species specific, so it doesn't hurt to remind producers to make it really clear when they're ordering tags. If they want sheep tags, that they be clear that they want sheep tags, and similarly with goat tags, and then they tag them accordingly. Particularly important for producers that might be running both sheep and goats on the same property. It's important to know which are your sheep tags and which are your goat tags, and obviously apply them to the correct species. The tag colours seem to still be causing a little bit of confusion here and there. So again, only the 8 colours in the year of birth system are NLIS accredited and registered to the producer's pick on the database and therefore traceable. However, following the year colours in that set sequence is voluntary in South Australia. Other colours that might have been available for visual tags, such as brown or grey or dark green, are not year of birth colours. They're not NLIS accredited, and therefore they're not registered to the NLIS database and not traceable through the NLIS. So again, producers need to pick one of the 8 colours, but following the sequence isn't necessary. The pink colour is only for post-breeder tags. And just a reminder that leftover eID tags can be used in any other following year. With the final tagging milestone coming 1 Jan next year, it brings with it the double tagging issue and some potential confusions that we're hearing about. So again, from 1 January next year, all animals that have had a visual NLIS tag must be re-tagged with an additional NLIS accredited eID tag before leaving the property. The majority of these will be those older animals that were born prior to 1 Jan 2025 that were originally tagged with a visual NLIS tag, which was the requirement at that time. These animals will be tagged with need to be tagged with either a breeder eID tag or a post-breeder eID tag, depending on the circumstance of that animal before leaving the property. So there's no need for producers to rush around on the 1st of January and make sure everything's tagged on their property. The requirement only is only required when those animals are leaving the property. Visual tags shouldn't be removed when applying that additional eID tag. However, sheep and goats must only be tagged with one eID device. So non-NLIS accredited eID tags, those management eID tags that some producers have been using in the past, must be removed from the animal when applying that accredited eID tag. Lastly, on tags, the tag discount and rebate is still available to producers. So the rebate and discount continues at 25% of the cost of the tag up to 47.5 cents. So the point of sale discount applies to tags purchased in the current year of birth colour. So this year is orange and next year green. The tag rebate is available for NLIS accredited eID tags purchased outside of the current year of birth colour. This is available until June 30, 2027 of next year, and producers might need just a little reminder to keep utilising this. Pink post-breeder tags are also eligible for the rebate for producers, and we encourage producers to have a supply of pink post-breeder tags on hand to apply if any non-vendor bred animals lose their breeder devices in the future on their property. So from tags, we're moving to scanning and reporting obligations. You've hopefully seen this schematic before. It outlines who along the supply chain holds the legal responsibility for the scanning and recording of eID tagged sheep and goat movements through the system, depending on the circumstance of that movement. It's particularly designed to help producers understand the times in which they must carry out that scanning and recording obligation. As you can see with the big red hand, you as agents only have that one scenario where you hold the legal responsibility to scan and record, this being when conducting on-farm public auctions. These are ram sales, on-farm clearing sales and so on. However, we do know that you do end up doing a lot more than this, often taking on the responsibility of carrying out P2P movements on behalf of your clients. So P2P movements in this diagram are those that are indicated by the little red hands. So they are the online auctions, the adjustment movements, the movements between properties with different PICs, which of course include moving between properties with different PICs that are owned by the same producer. So they're the 3 types of movements that we class as P2P. And they are the responsibility of the producer. But as we know, producers wildly misunderstand these responsibilities. And there's possibly a couple of reasons for this misunderstanding. Firstly, many assume, as you would well know, that their agents have the legal responsibility because they've facilitated the transaction, for example, automatically thinking that you have done this as part of your role. And this is also evident when producers buy online. And secondly, there's also confusion from producers who own multiple PICs and multiple properties, and not realising that they need to scan and record movements when moving animals between those properties that they own. So we really encourage you to be really clear with your clients whether you will or you won't be assisting them with any P2P movements. And for those that want it, this schematic or diagram and the supporting information that goes with it can be downloaded from the PIRSA eID page if you or your clients want it, or we can send out some hard copies if you like. So following on with ram season approaching again, a few on-farm auction selling reminders. So all sheep and farm goats with an eID device must be scanned and recorded. Rams sold this year should be all tagged with an eID tag if they are 2025 drop rams, of course. This must be carried out as a livestock move non-written authority individual function on the database. On-farm auctions must be uploaded to the database within the 2 days of the sale, which is the national expectation. And buyers might need to be reminded that they don't need to apply their own eID tag to their purchased rams when they bring their rams home. So again, the message is one eID device for life. So as we've touched on, agents often take on the scanning and recording obligations on behalf of your clients as part of your service, especially those P2P movements that you're involved in. Again, this isn't your legal responsibility, but as we know, producers often misunderstand this. So again, we just encourage you to be really clear about whether you will or you won't be taking on that role. And if you are going to take on the P2P responsibility of scanning and recording, it's great and ideal to put that in writing. The NLIS database function that you record this is the livestock move non-written authority individual function on the database. And again, that needs to be done within 2 days. You might also occasionally help your local show or field day with their scanning and recording of their events. And if you are helping out with this, it needs to be recorded as a cited livestock movement via the Showgrounds NLIS database account. A few points on agent picks. So animals can only be transferred to an agent pick on the database if the destination pick is unknown at the point of sale by sale yards only, in a sale yard setting only, meaning they must be transferred to the agent pick by the sale yard operator. Animals must then be transferred to the correct buyer's destination pick on the database within 2 days, so they shouldn't be sitting on your current holdings for longer than 2 days. Livestock can't be transferred from an agent pick to another agent pick or a sale yard pick or an abattoir pick, and agent picks are not permitted to be used as an interim pick between property to property movements. So just a quick slide on agents working in sale yards. And by this, I mean that are agents working within a sale yard that are managed by a sale yard operator, such as Dublin and Narracourt, for example. I'm not talking about the sales where agents are actually conducting the sales or acting as a sale yard operator themselves. So agents, livestock agents facilitating the sale of sheep and goats at a multi-vendor sale must ensure that animals are firstly correctly identified and secondly traceable to the pick of consignment. And the pick of consignment is the pick printed on the NVD or the ENVD. Sheep with missing tags must be tagged with sale yard post-breeder tags. Vendors or their agents can't have a spare supply or an emergency supply of producer devices sent in with the animals or stored at the sale yard. Permits can be obtained, however, to move sheep and farm goats untagged. So these animals will need to be tagged at the sale yard with sale yard tags, and any cost will be charged to the vendor at the sale yard's discretion. Completed movement docs, including the NVD or NVD, must be provided by the vendor before the sale of the animals. And before the end of sale day, agents in sale yards must provide the sale yard operator with the device numbers or the RFID numbers, the consigning pick, and the destination pick. Quick reminder on movement documents. All sheep movements to a different pig must have a National Sheep Health Declaration and a movement document. The National Goat Health Document is voluntary. The most common movement document is the NVD or the ENVD. And we just continue to remind producers who might be a little bit confused that ENVDs don't automatically record the movement of the animals on the database. They still need to be uploaded to the database by the responsible party. So again, there are rebates available to support producers purchasing scanning equipment to carry out those legal responsibilities. And as we've touched on, the movements that producers are responsible for legally are those P2P sheep and goat movements. The main reminder here is the rebate closes June 30 of this year, so really only in a couple of weeks. So if you have clients that are eligible for the rebate and are tossing out whether to buy scanning equipment, or they just haven't got around to applying yet, please remind them that they need to get their application submitted by this date of June 30. Lastly, a little bit on compliance. The implementation of sheep and goat eID is now pretty well advanced. Producers, agents, and other supply chain participants have had tagging and scanning and reporting obligations in place for approximately 18 months now. So we are now increasingly moving from that education phase to more of that enforcement phase. So PIRSA will be ramping up compliance activities, led, of course, with reasonable common sense. eID is written into legislation. So these are legal obligations. It's not a voluntary system. And everyone in the livestock industry expects the system to be working as it's intended. So the system does need to have a compliance backing to give it kind of some validity and some rigor. So saying this, PIRSA officers are not going to be hiding behind bushes, jumping out, waiting to nab people. However, we do need to be able to deal with non-compliance, particularly that large and intentional non-compliance. Otherwise, the money that we've all put in and the effort to implement this system is effectively wasted. So we've got here some key contacts that you or your clients might like to call upon for support. So the NLIS database helpline, both the phone and the email that's listed there, are great first contact points for any database issues. We also have a bunch of fact sheets and videos and general information on our PIRSA Sheep and Goat web page, including information about those rebates and how to apply. Both Denise Rendell and my contact details are also listed here. So if you need any clarification about your responsibilities, or if you haven't had any luck with the information from other sources, then we're very happy to give us a call or shoot us an email. So from here, I will pass back to Jody.
So we had some great questions submitted at registration, and we'll go through those. So first question. I might pose that to Denise, who's online. Denise, tagging of older sheep and what rebates are available for producers?
Thanks, Jody. As far as older sheep go, if they need to be tagged, if they are born on the property, then they need to be tagged with a breeder tag. So any one of those 8 breeder tag colours. And if they were not born on the property, then they get a pink post-breeder tag. So that needs to be done from at least 1 January 2027 before they leave the property. In terms of rebates, as Tara stated, the tag rebates and the point of sale is still going to be operating until the 30th of June 2027, and producers will be eligible for 47.5 cents per tag.
Thank you. Next question. Tara, I'll put this one to you. A producer has leftover tags. That's a perfect segue from the previous one. Can they be used on older or other sheep and farmed goats?
Okay, thanks, Jody. Look, the simple answer to this is yes. As long as the tags are NLIS accredited eID tags, they can be used at any point of time in the future. They must be correct, however, for the species being used, meaning that if they're leftover sheep breeder tags, they must only be applied to sheep on your property in future years. So if you're not concerned about keeping strictly to the year of birth colour system, leftover tags can be used in any following year, including older sheep when they move off property post 1 Jan 2027.
Thank you. Next question, I'll put this one to you, Denise. What's the accepted scanning rate at sale yards? An oldie but a goodie.
Yes, it is. Look, the expectation is that all of the sheep and goats that come into a sale yard are identified with the appropriate NLIS device. So at the moment, we're in a transition still. We still have animals that can come in with visual tags. And also, of course, anything born last year, or if it comes in from a Victorian property, must all have electronic ID tags. So yeah, as I said, everything must come in with a tag. In terms of scanning, the scanners themselves are actually working extremely efficiently, and we commonly see for consignments that 100% of all of the tags are being scanned. But at minimum, we expect 98% of the tags, eID tags, to be scanned.
Thank you. Next question, one to you, Tara. And this is one similar to what I've had just in the last week. A producer owns station and inside country. What are their responsibilities?
Okay, well, if a producer owns more than one property and they have different property identification codes, which they probably would be in this type of scenario, then the movements of animals between those properties must be recorded on the NLIS database. So those animals do need to be scanned and recorded. This is considered just another type of that P2P movement. So in this example, if a producer has or is moving sheep or farm goats down from their station country to their southern block, for example, and again those properties have different PICs, then the animals must be scanned and recorded on the NLIS database within the 2 days of arrival onto the inside country PIC. And the animals must also have correct movement documentation. So even though they're moving between properties owned by the same producer, they still need to be accompanied by the sheep health declaration and an NVD or ENVD or alternate waybill.
Thank you. A common one where people own 2 blocks. Thanks. Denise, another one for you. Can producers get pre-approval for the equipment rebate?
It's not necessary to get pre-approval. Producers, though, really do need to read the guidelines and make sure at what level they can claim for the rebate. But the main thing is that they do provide us with proof that they have actually purchased the equipment since the 8th of June 2023 to be eligible for the rebate. But as stated earlier, they really need to get moving to put their application in, because applications do close on the 30th of June 2026.
Thank you. And we'll pop Julie's details back up at the end. If you've got any queries on behalf of producers, please contact Julie in regard to that. Next question, tag issues. Another oldie but a goodie. Producers have reported tags failing for various reasons. What do they need to do? You touched on that earlier, Tara. I'll put that one to you.
Sure, yeah. As I said earlier, all NLIS accredited eID tags have gone through that accreditation process to ensure that they are suitable for the job. However, if your clients or producers are having some retention or other tag related issues despite following tagging, placement, hygiene, technique, as if they're still using the correct applicator and still having issues, then producers can lodge a complaint with either Integrity Systems Company, ISC, or their tag manufacturer or rural reseller. We have actually a couple of links here that might be useful, and we'll send these around when we send around the recording. The first is the fact sheet helping people choose the correct device for their particular circumstance and their animals. And the second link is the actual device complaint form. So again, we'll send around these links and that you might like to distribute these to your producers, especially those ones that you've heard who are having ongoing tag retention or tag issues.
Thanks, Tara. That's all the questions I've got. I just want to highlight the eID program has produced a number of case studies, both on goats, farmed goats and sheep. They range from the southeast to the Mallee to Eyre Peninsula on how producers are using eID in their enterprises. These are available on the PIRSA website. They're also available in hard copy. I'll do is I'll send you the link to those when we send out the recording from today. But yeah, those case studies are available, and there's a couple more coming as well. There's still being developed. So there'll be 10 in total. So yep, jump on the PIRSA website or catch up with one of us and we can give you some hard copies of those if you would like them. Just as a reminder, as Tara said, these are people's details. Tara and Denise in relation to NLIS. If you've got any general inquiries, please direct them to me. If they're NLIS related, I will send them back to Tara and Denise. Sorry, they're the experts in that space. As I said, if you've got queries about the rebate, please contact Julie Wedderburn. Her details are there. We've also put up the details of our PIRSA eID website, Integrity Systems Company. And I also like to remind people that the database help for NLIS is available. And they've got great hours, so please contact them if you've got any issues. We thank you for your time this morning. Hopefully that recap has been useful to you. If you do have other queries, please reach out to one of us. We're more than happy to help you with those. Or if clients have got issues, please reach out. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a lovely day.